He's my little kitty Buddha because he makes me batshit crazy. Clawing, meowing, demanding all the things. And so it's like, how good is my practice? And typically it's not very good. So it's like, it says there's more work to be done.
Right. Otis is on it.
Otis is totally on it. Like the angel sent down from heaven on my case. Absolutely. So, hi, I'm Karuna. I'm the founder and executive director of Mind Oasis. And this is my revamped podcast, Tea Talk and Truth with Karuna. We haven't had an episode in quite some time. So I'm very excited to kind of wrap up this year and kick off the new year with my guest, John Buchanan. John, how are you?
I'm good. Hi, and you're well?
Yeah. John, tell us a little bit about you. Where in the world are you right now? And what are you up to in the world in general?
Well, right now I'm in Roberts Creek, which is not usually where I am, but my base is in Vancouver. And well, since COVID started, it's been a lot of Zoom. So been teaching for many years, and an actual increase in teaching because of this whole Zoom thing. Teach the Dharma as much as possible. I'm a musician as well, so I play music, and what I guess I do like small like handyman renovation jobs for because the Dharma doesn't pay enough. uh, it's interesting to me, like the whole idea of getting out of samsara, or waking up the mind so that we can get out of the cycle of suffering. I think for real, in a real way, there's not really a lot of people that are, I think, take that seriously enough to actually buy into it. Most people, I think, are interested in having a nicer, you could say, a nicer samsara. So yeah, I think I teach as much as I can to try and teach that idea that there is a way to wake up and right where we are. And so I've been, I guess, studying Tibetan Buddhism for a long time, since 2006. And before that, I was meditating a lot. So I'd meditated since I'm 56 years old now. I started meditating when I was 23. And then so I'd done a lot of meditating before running into the Dharma. And so then it was great, because then all that meditation came in and I could apply it to the Dharma, as opposed to, I guess, the other way around. I think a lot of people
Right?
hit the Dharma and it's the other way around. So that's really important to have a still mind, a meditative foundation.
Yeah, awesome. Oh my gosh. So I have so many questions for you. Awesome. So you don't sound American. You don't sound American, which makes me think you maybe didn't grow up in the United States of America.
No,
Where
I didn't.
did you
Yeah.
grow up, John?
Well, my father was in the service, so I was born in Nova Scotia, and we moved every 2.5 years. So I lived in Nova Scotia, I lived in Ontario, I lived in Quebec, I lived in Alberta, and then he ended up retiring in British Columbia.
Mm.
So that's where I ended up doing high school, stuff like that. And then I eventually, in 1986, I moved to Vancouver.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And what brought you first to meditation? So you would have been you are still a young man. However, you
Yes.
were a younger man when you, approached or connected with meditation, which doesn't
Yeah.
happen for everyone. And especially, a little bit back in the day.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your journey to meditation. How did you find it?
Well, actually, it's kind of funny how it happened. It was, I think, you know how they say that a Buddha can appear in many, many, many forms? I think the Buddha appeared as a television set. And the reason why I started was uh, I was still, I'm a musician, and I had my little recording studio, and I was really fervently involved in a recording session, full on, right into it. And I walked out of the room, And in another room, kind of in a foyer, a television was on. And as I walked out, my intention was to go from one room to another room to get something and return to back to the music room. But I got caught by the television.
Hooked.
I got hooked, and I recognized that I went into kind of a trance. I was like caught by this thing, and I woke up and I thought, wait a minute, I just got completely distracted, even though I was fully immersed in my musical project. It like this television had the power to just like side rail me. And so that scared me. And then so I remembered at that point, I'd heard about meditation, and I just went and got a book, and it was a book on Zen meditation.
Mhm.
And I opened it up, and the very first thing in the book, I can't remember who the author was. It was too long ago. The author says, I challenge you to see if you can actually watch the second hand go around a clock without being distracted. And I was like, well, of course I can do that. And then and then I quickly found out that I couldn't. And I sat down and watched that red thing go, and I don't know how long I lasted before I was thinking about something else. And it kept happening. And then I thought, wow, I've got a problem. I got like this has to be affecting my life in a way that I don't even know. And if I continue to live my life with an inability to concentrate, who knows? So that's how it started. And then my motivation was pretty strong because I was pretty freaked out by the fact that I couldn't concentrate for more than 15 or 20 seconds without being distracted. I didn't know terms like the wandering mind. I didn't know anything other than the fact that I couldn't concentrate very long. And of course, I could concentrate for long periods of time on something I wanted to, like music. But as soon as it was something that I was willfully, without any apparent reason, trying to actually focus on, I couldn't do it. So that's how I started. And then it was like sitting against the wall. The instructions were sit against the wall, stare at the wall. And I was really fanatic about it. I was doing it even on like people would come over, and I would like, no, I got to do my thing. They'd go over and I'd sit against the wall, stare at the wall for 15 minutes. And then that eventually led me to find a group that were teaching this meditative practice, but it was more subtle body. So that was my real kind of introduction, is I got into the chakras. So that, and I ran with that. That was really ran with that for a good couple of years. And I took the foundational course there, and just every single day I was doing it, and went on a 14-month trip where I traveled all over the States, and I just meditated all over the place. And that's where I really made all the first ground, and then eventually made my way into the Dharma. Walked into a Buddhist class. Well, I got dragged in, actually, kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go, but somebody dragged me in there, and then someone started teaching me about emptiness, and that was it.
Awesome. So I want to come back there,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
before we go there, I want to touch on your musical interests. So
yeah,
first of all, it sounds like you're a musician, which to me means you probably play an instrument or two. What's your
yeah.
jam?
I play guitar, and I play drums, and I play bass, and I sing.
Very cool. And what kind of influence, like what were your musical influences in your 20s and such? Like what were you jamming out to? Original, or were you a cover band? What were you up to?
Well, I was originals mainly. So my dad was a musician, so he got me in. So I was the Beatles, but I was very much into the Beatles, Tears for Fears, the Police, things like that. But what I was doing was writing originals. So it was all originals for quite a while, but I would learn stuff like cover tunes and like Peter Gabriel, things like that, to I guess influence my writing. So I was all original for a long time, and then eventually, just as time went on, got more into, I guess, all kinds of music. I really went through the ringer with it, actually. My ego got so involved that it got really bad for a while. I had to stop playing for a while because I guess I was getting the kind of attention that I wanted, and then began to recognize that if I had a good gig, then and people gave me compliments, then I was in a good mood for a few days. And then if I didn't get the compliment I wanted, then I was in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And I started recognizing that that was a problem. So what eventually happened was I dropped it all, had to work on myself a whole bunch, and then come back to it. And what I found was what brought me back to it was kirtan. It was
Mm,
actually music for others instead of music for just myself. It was started. That's what really pulled me back. So I started doing kirtan, and that was just such a big blessing to actually. I'd never even heard it before. Suddenly, we're at sing-alongs and singing mantra and things like that. That was my way back in.
John,
Yeah.
you've mentioned a few things that, like, for you and me, because, I also study Tibetan Buddhism, and I've also been in kind of the yogic scene for a couple of years and all that good stuff. So there are a few words that you and I use that that others may not know what it is. So I just want to back up and do a couple of definitions according to you, and then we'll move back into when you discovered the Dharma, because my guess is that's going to be a juicy story. So early on, you mentioned the word Dharma. Can you just tell us a little bit about what the word Dharma means to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the Dharma, yeah, it's kind of an ever-changing meaning as certainly my path has unfolded. But in Buddhism, the Dharma is supposed to mean like everything, like any physical thing could be a Dharma. But to me, like kind of a, would you say, the functional way for me to think about it is uh, the truth, or the Dharma would be, I think people think of it as teaching, but anything that we do that brings us closer to our ultimate happiness. So any teaching that can fill us like that, any teaching that can guide us like that, any way that we can look at the world in such a way that actually sets us free from suffering, that's what I would think of as the Dharma.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that definition. And then what is kirtan?
Kirtan, kirtan is funny. I just got to tell you a little story about kirtan. I don't know if you know. Do you know Mirashani? No, so well, she'd be connected to that Kimberly lineage, but so she would say, she would give me trouble for saying, I would say kirtan, and she'd say it's kirtan. It's
Oh,
kirtan. And but when we started doing it, the joke was, I'd say, no, we're actually doing kirtan, which is which is I think was very, very influenced by our love of music and sing-along. So you say kirtan is the leader would maybe typically do like a Sanskrit chant, like even just as simple as Om Mani Padme Hum in a melody or something beautiful, and then the participants or the audience, you could say, would then sing it back. So then there's a leader, a call and response. So call and response, and ideally what happens is you kind of can get into a rhythmic state. Hopefully you've got a good drummer there and some good background music, and everyone can go into this nice state where no one's concerned about singing on key, no one's concerned about being a good singer. And if the leader is on it, is promoting singing with an open heart, and then the idea is you're singing to a higher purpose, or singing to something in your heart, or singing to a guru, or singing to a loved one, singing with devotion. And that has a very, very beautiful way of directly having the expansiveness feeling. And so what we ended up doing was we wanted to get past the call and response as soon as we could and get right to everyone singing all the time. So that was our approach. Because we went to that's why I left. So now we're doing Kirtan, not Kirtan, because we were kind of in a way breaking the rules a little bit, because you're just like, that's okay. And so we would do even songs like a Beatles song, like or something like that, and everyone would know after doing some Sanskrit, and then get everyone involved, and it becomes a big, beautiful sing along, and everyone's happy, having a good time.
Joyful,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Is one of my favorite practices, and one that I missed from the pandemic, but we were very fortunate. Garish is a good friend to Mind Oasis, and so he would bring Kirtan onto Mind Oasis once every few months for us, which was awesome. And amazingly, the feeling of joy can float right through the ethers. It's pretty amazing.
I am amazed by that.
Yeah. So, okay. So you went on a 14-month journey around the States and were meditating in a variety of places, and you got dragged into a Dharma offering Buddhist center or something. Tell us all the details that you can.
Okay. So at the time, I was in the middle of a yoga teacher training, and there was a person there who I didn't know it at the time, but she was always dragging around this book, the Yoga Sutras by Geshe Roach. So, and she just seemed different to me, and we always had a giggle. There's something between us. There was always something between us that had a giggle, and we would hang out. And so this is a 6-month yoga teacher training course. And as time went on, she started saying to me, I think that you're going to really like Buddhism. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I think, yeah. And in fact, right after this course ends, there's a person named Mirashani coming to town. She's teaching the Yoga Sutra. You should go. And I said, no, not interested. Because I just spent 6 months doing all this homework, teacher training. I didn't have any money. I mean, I went through that on just like a scrape through that by doing service to them.
John, where were you? You don't have
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Vancouver. Yeah, and I was terrified the whole time. It was a real like scary time for me to try and become a yoga teacher, and I just wasn't interested in doing any more homework or anything. And she said, no, you have to go. And I just kept saying, no, I don't have the money. She goes, well, we're going to work that out. And so every excuse I gave her, she just said, wouldn't take it. And so finally, she just hassled me so much that I said yes. And she got me into the door. And it was at a yoga studio, another yoga studio. Mirashani was there teaching stuff I'd never heard of before, Yoga Sutra. And I'd at that time been meditating for a long time. So I set up my little station. I remember I had made a pile of yoga blocks as like a little desk. It's like I was just new to this, and had some papers, and I was looking at her. And she was saying things that I'd never heard before, saying things like not responding in kind. Like if someone treats you bad, the last thing you want to do is actually return that. And it made no sense to me at all. So it's like stopping these cycles. But what happened was, then she took out this object. She took out the pen and she started talking about emptiness. And she started talking about this thing having no self-inherent nature. And I just locked in on that, and I was staring at her. And I don't know what happened there, but it was like I got hit by a truck. It's just this big whoa, it went off in like a big flash went off. This aha moment, I guess. And it went in deep enough for me to just be rocked by it. And it made sense. I guess, you know what it was? It was that I finally understood that there was nowhere to go. So before that time, all my practice and meditation, I think I was trying to escape my mental affliction. And so I got really good at meditating, so good that I could do whatever I wanted and actually disappear where they're really, you can go to a realm of meditation where there's no affliction, but if you have to deal with it. So you come back. So I had to keep coming back to this very afflicted state. And then I realized in that class that that wasn't going to work, that I actually needed to stay and work out my karma. I had to need to work out my affliction just from that teaching. And it just made so much sense to me that, yeah, you know, we give things their meaning. And that was it. That was it. And then it just lit a fire in me. And then Lama Marut came, and one thing led to another. And I just, as my teacher said, I started inhaling the Dharma like an industrial vacuum cleaner. It just, that's what happened. And that I never stopped. I just took course after course after course after course, and then eventually started teaching it and still teach it. And that was 2006 when I got dragged into that room.
John, who have you studied with?
I studied with, well, the ACI courses, of course. So Geshe Michael Roach, all those courses, and the teachers.
Which you and I know, but ACI stands for Asian Classics.
Yes, good point. Yeah, which is basically a Geshe course that Geshe Michael Roach put together that you can study, and it's got homeworks and quizzes and readings. It's amazing, and audios. And so people were teaching that, but so that was all through Geshe, like Ken Rinpoche, through Geshe Michael Roach, down through to this teacher, to me. But then my direct teachers became Lama Marut, was my very direct teacher, and also Lama Yvonne Jakes and Lama Roger Jakes, who then became my more esoteric teachers. But my main teacher of Buddhism, you know, my teachers before that, I didn't really understand the concept teacher, you know. So I'd say the big one for me, was Lama Marut.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that led to everything else, you know, my esoteric teachers, and Geshe Michael Roach was big, and Lama Christie they were big, but Lama Marut he became my root Lama, and he gave me my Bodhisattva vows and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hector Marcel, who studied at the Michael Roach, is my teacher.
Yes.
And I have this, I'm looking for it, but it's right in front of me. I'm going to take a second and grab it. Hang on, because you will appreciate this. Oh, I had to change my setup. So this is what sits on my altar.
Oh, wow.
Right?
What a power trio.
Beautiful. That's so, for the listeners who don't know, I'm showing a picture of Lama Marut, his beautiful partner, Cindy Lee, and my Lama, Hector Marcel.
Yeah, what a picture.
It is. And it was taken by Lillian Mead, which is really funny. I didn't know that. And I was at a gathering in New York City, and I showed her that picture, and she's like, I took that picture. And I was like, this world is getting so small. It's so crazy. So John, you are bringing a wonderful series to Mind Oasis in January of 2023. Yay. And it's called What's with All the Noise in My Head During Meditation? Do you want to talk a little bit about your approach to teaching meditation? And before you go there, I'm just going to let listeners know that there's to me, a very distinct difference between guiding meditation and teaching meditation. And I'd like to share kind of what that is. Mm-hmm. On Mind Oasis, we offer every day, 4 to 5 times a day, live sessions. It's called community meditation. You log on, and there are community members, somewhere between, 3 to 10 people, sometimes more, sometimes less. And there's a guide, and those guides have been trained by me to guide meditation for 30 minutes. And the session kind of looks like this. There's some, a little bit of movement. Of course, everybody welcomes everyone. And then there's a little movement. Then we do a check-in, a somatic check-in. We usually go through a body scan, or sometimes through the 5 senses. And then the guide will guide people for a few minutes, helping instruct them how to connect with the sensation of breath. That's what we typically use as our tether or anchor of the mind. Then there's a few minutes, somewhere between 5, or if you're with me, 15 minutes of silence, where you get to work with your mind, which is what you're going to be talking about, like all the good things that happen in your meditation practice, which, by the way, means you're alive if things are happening in your head while you're meditating, and then they will maybe have a check-in. And then at the end of the session, we always have a quote, or sometimes we play music or something like that. That's guided meditation. That means you've showed up and someone is going to help guide you through a meditation process over a period of time. As opposed to that, teaching meditation, which is what I do in our immersions, is I am teaching you how to sit on your own with no one guiding you except for yourself, and what to do as obstacles arise, right? How do you address the obstacles at different stages of meditation and work with them? Okay, so that the reason I went into that whole big monologue is because I actually think that there is a deep misunderstanding out in the meditation world, largely because of kind of famous teachers calling their programs that they do like teacher trainings, when what they're really teaching people how to do is how to meditate. And so I'm kind of trying to get out there to say, you have to learn how to meditate, and that requires a teacher. You can show up with just about anyone and get guided in meditation. There's a distinct difference. So to me, this series complements what we're doing on Mind Oasis, because you are going to, I assume, help teach people some of the tips, tools, and techniques you can use on the cushion on your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well said. I love what you said. God, I love it so much. It's I think especially in this day, so many people come up to me and they say, I've been meditating on like apps. They're getting guided meditations through these apps, and they ask me, is it better to meditate on my own without the apps? And there's always this, like you said, it's I think the obvious answer is, obviously on your own. Lemon used to say, you didn't just meditate, I meditated for you. He would say that. And the idea, I think the apps are awesome for learning how. Then you got to drop it. So I think that's what the role of the teacher is, to show you how to drop the training wheels and have your own training wheels. You go into and then because then you have to go up against your own mind. That's your opponent. And as long as the meditation is being guided by someone else, you kind of get a free ride, and it's beautiful, and you get taken into a space, but you get carried there. And we all know that in a guided meditation, we can still be distracted. The mind will still, wander off, no problem, but the guide is there and he'll keep bringing you back. When you're by yourself, when the mind wanders, there's no one to bring you back, and you could be gone for a good half hour, no problem. So that's great. So yeah, the course will be about teaching methods of how to tackle and be aware of the things the many obstacles that are in our way from having a very clear, very still mind, experiencing our true, fulfilled, like already pre-fulfilled, you'd say, presence that we all have, which we don't get to experience because it's veiled to us by the constant activity of the wandering mind. And so when we go down, sit down, attempt to meditate by ourselves, we find out very, very soon that the wandering mind has different ideas. It's not interested. We have so much going on. And so there will definitely be some guided meditation in the course, but also, I love that you said, 15 minutes of silence if you're teaching. I love that. There has to be silence. There has to be silence. There has to be guidance. And then there will be teaching sessions where I will choose a certain obstacle, give some advice, try this, here's what to do. And then you can apply it in your meditation on your own. And what also I'm going to be talking about is the importance of how you're living your life when you're off the cushion. Because ideally, I think it's a great, people can fall for this where they think their practice ends as soon as they stand up off their cushion. And that's not the goal. Meditation is a tool that we use to then be able to get off the cushion and be a beautiful person in life. And the only way we can be a beautiful person in life is if we're aware of what's happening in the mind. Because, I don't know, myself, I mean, you probably lose count at about 1 billion, how many times in my life I've just totally unaware or been taken into this non-lucid state of reacting to a situation and hurting someone else, and then so by that hurting myself just through lack of awareness. And if you look back in time and say, oh, why did I do that? Why, God, if I could just turn back the clock, I would have done it differently. And the only difference is awareness. A moment of non-awareness can get us to do can be the impetus for us to do all kinds of things that just continue the impetus for our suffering to continue. So that's what excites me about meditation, is that we have all the power. It's all within us. All we need to do is apply some basic tools that the mind is going to fight. And we can win that fight. If our motivation is clear and we understand what we're up against, that's a big part of it, is being real about what we're up against, and also being real with it. Everyone's dealing with it. No one comes to meditation for the first time unless they have some crazy goodness potential inside of them. Most people come and it's a struggle right from the start, and then they get discouraged thinking that I can't meditate because I'm distracted. That's like saying, I heard this great saying once, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible enough. And that's like saying I can't take a shower because I'm too dirty. It's like everyone fights that to the end. And as we go, the problems become more subtle, but they're there until we're totally clear. And it's worth every moment. It's worth every perceived failure. It's worth every bit of effort that we ever put into it. When the mind clears, there's no amount of treasure in this world that could ever pay for what that's worth. This just to have a clear, still, calm, happy mind is it's beyond compare. Yeah. And we can do it. Everyone can do it.
Absolutely. So it's a 4-week series. It starts on the 17th of January, which is a
Tuesday, isn't it?
Tuesday night? Tuesdays, 7:00 Central. It's just an hour long. You can go to mindoasis.org to register and to learn more, and you'll go to the Learn tab and you will see John's face and this wonderful title, What's with All the Noise in My Head During Meditation? And then the subtitle is There's Hope. So if you've ever felt hopeless, here we go. John's going to give you hope, which is a great thing to have in the beginning of the year. So I think this is a perfectly timed series. So I want to, I have one question I ask all of my guests, but before we go there, I just want to go back and ask you, you talked about in your meditation in your meditation journey, that you had experienced sort of those upward stages, maybe 7, 8, 9, where you're really pretty clear. Mm-hmm. And then you would quote unquote come back off the cushion and your life was as challenging as it was. Now, the word you used was samsara. Some of our listeners won't know what that is, and I'll just, let people know that that's a word that you could use for kind of like the suffering world, sort of the earthly realm that we find ourselves in. And then people a lot of times will push back a little bit and say, it's an awesome world. My world is great. And the truth is at the end of the day, you're going to die. And, so there's the ultimate suffering is the end. One could say. So that's why we call in the Tibetan tradition minimally that this is sort of a samsara world. So having said all of that, I'll just caveat one more. I spent a month out in the desert studying, well, really, I was on a silent meditation retreat, but I was at Chuladasa's retreat center. And what I found was a lot of the strangely young men who would be out there, they meditated like day and night. And in fact, it made me go like, shit, am I like a terrible meditator? Because I was going bananas, to be honest with you. I was having a really hard time. And they looked all fucking zen. And I was like, what is going on here? But then, like, you know, we had sevas, we had service that we had to do. And like, if something didn't go right, they'd be like curled up in the corner crying. And I was like, what is going on here? And what I realized was that they were amazing meditators, quote unquote, in the cave on their own without life happening. But the moment that life struck, they were like a fucking hot mess. And I vowed when I came out, and you'll find this on Mind Oasis, I vowed when I came out that like we would teach people, guide people in what I call real meditation. And to me, what that means is the kind of meditation that you, that the veil between on the cushion and off the cushion out in life, householders, all of that gets transparent. It's thin. It's like, there's no difference between the two. So I'd love to hear, first of all, a little bit about your own personal journey where you were like, oh, yo, I can meditate, but can I like go out in the world? One, and then two, how you might be incorporating that into your teachings moving forward.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that. Very passionate diatribe.
Well, this is one of a couple of things I feel passion about.
Yeah, I get it. So started meditating, and when I first started meditating, my head was so noisy that I thought that I was never going to get a break, and really noisy. I don't know how long it was into it. And these aren't guided meditations. Like I got the guidance and then I did it myself, you know. And then I think there was a moment there where suddenly there was no noise, and I got super excited. Like maybe it was the first time in my life that I had experienced no noise in my head. I didn't know what that was like. Whoa, two different realities. So then I became very excited about this gap, and erroneously thought that that was a place where I could go to live and not, you know, and but my motivation was very extreme to get to because I was experiencing all kinds of low self-esteem, depression. I would do anything for a compliment, like just all kinds of stuff like that in the world, which ironically, folks at home, when you start meditating, that becomes very obvious. So there's a time when like I always get excited if someone comes up to me and says, John, I've been meditating and I feel crazier than I ever have. I'm like, you're doing it right. I get really excited about that. So you start to become aware of like what the mind is doing, which is pretty crazy when you become aware of it. So I get obsessed with this idea of being able to go somewhere where my affliction wasn't. And I was doing these subtle body meditations, which is like in your chakras and channels and stuff, and you're doing these visualizations, and that I'll talk about that in the workshop. That's a great method to become still. So I'm very good at that, and then especially on that trip I took, I got to a point where I could go into the middle of the woods, sit on a freaking log, have flies crawling on my face, and just experience like a communion and bliss from a fly, you know, crawling around on my sixth chakra, and just like go to these golden realms of just, you know, no longer aware of a body. no longer aware of the senses, but always, always have to come back. And my world would then, like, when you reach certain levels of meditation, it's like when you return from meditation, it's almost like your body reforms. It's like you come back and the body's in life, like when we go to sleep at night, you wake up in the morning and there's, the world reforms. But in meditation, oh, there's that irritated mind again. Here's the mind that is cranky because I'm not getting the dessert that I want. I'm not, here's the mind that's cranky because someone didn't give me a compliment again after all this time, after all this practice. So actually, to be really candid, that took me to a very, very dark place, because I had gotten really amazing at meditating and I was still suffering hard. And that, to me, was like, okay, there's no hope. Like I can do anything with my mind I want now, but I'm still suffering hard. And so I got to the brink of very, 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 very dark place. And I slowly came out of there through counseling. I had a counselor who started making me get real about my life. So I started realizing that, wow, I have some deep anger issues, and they started coming out. And it was funny because I was so self-realized. I come there and I would tell, well, this is what I do. I da 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 da, and she looked at me and she said, wow, you're so aware of everything that you're doing. I said, yeah, it's horrible. And she goes, tell me about your parents. and, and then it was just one thing led to another, and it was so bad. I had so much resistance to going to those sessions. Like every time I went, in the elevator, it was like a fight. Like, these are useless, and then I would fight my way in the door, and then I would go in the door, and then I would like be yelling in there and just like, so then that, I remember getting out of one of those sessions and getting down into my truck. I was so like hit by it all. I couldn't even drive. I sat there and recognized that maybe for the first time in 30 years, I felt like a real person. I was like, okay, I'm a mess, but I'm real. Like, I know I'm a mess, and I felt really good, but also horrible. So then from there, I started to be able to use my meditation to actually recognize I've got affliction, got to deal with it. And what really, really helped, and what really, really got that to leave my mind, was the Dharma, was starting to plant goodness in the world, goodness in myself, and then all the negativities slowly began to dissolve as I counteracted that. But that took real-time awareness in the world, being real about what I am and what I'm not, treating people kindly, consciously doing that, step by step. It took some time, but it worked. Right. And so I know what you're saying. That's what that's where I come from. I come from that place of saying, here's a method, but you got to do the work.
Oh yeah.
There's no running. There's no running from the mind, because it's just waiting for you to think that. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for that really personal share. It was awesome. Your therapist must have been as good as my therapist. So,
oh yeah, there you go.
I always say therapy is really important with a meditation practice. So John, what's your truth?
What's my truth?
What's your truth? This is Tea Talk and Truth with Karuna. We have gotten to the tea. I'm having coffee. What are you having?
Coffee.
We have definitely gotten talked. So now we have to do the truth. What's your truth?
Okay, my truth. That's a very, very great question. I think my truth is that every single one of us has the potential innate within us to be free, and that the the self that most of us perceive ourselves to be is what stands between our complete and total well-being and contentment, and you could say continual suffering. So that's my truth, is that in each and every moment, a self arises in relation to the situation, and for as long as we identify with that suffering self, that's for as long as we will suffer. And that the simple and raw truth that we can actually be aware of that self is logical proof enough that we aren't that self. It's a perception. All we, it's ridiculously and almost stupidly simple. All we really have to do is stop identifying with that self. And you will see it. It will just collapse back into the space of mind where it came from, and then you'll know freedom. So that's my truth, is that freedom is is closer to you than your breath, and it's certainly not out there, and anyone can do it, and that's what excites me, and that's why that's my truth, and that's why I teach constantly. Yeah.
So we have to plug you. We have to do some plugging here. First of all, on my basis, in early 2023, it starts on the 17th of January. John will be bringing a 4-week series called What's with All the Noise in My Head During Meditation? But more importantly, there's hope. To Mind Oasis, you can go to mindoasis.org, go to the Learn tab, and you can register and learn more there. So that's one thing. But you have podcasts, you have things happening. So tell us all about the wonderful stuff that you're up to in the world and how people connect with you.
Okay. Well, I'm doing this podcasts called Chitta Chat, Chitta Chat on this Sukhavati Studios, which has been great. We've done one season. That's kind of been just kind of this beautiful rambling talk on these Buddhist ideas, Dharma and bodhicitta and emptiness and things. And then we're just about to start season 2. And we're going to go into Kamala Shila's stages of meditation. I'm super excited about that. We're going to use that scripture. We've already recorded one episode. So that's ongoing. And then every Monday night, I teach on Zoom meditation. It's called Meditation Monday every Monday night. And every Sunday, Monday at 7, and every Sunday at 4, we do this beautiful little thing called Sangha Sunday. We get together. We open with a meditation where we go to refuge for in a teacher, or you could say we pull our minds into a place where we're not putting our hopes in pain. We're trying to putting our hopes into something else. And then someone will bring a subject forward, and we'll talk about real life kind of ways to live the Dharma. So that happens. And all of this can be found on my website, which is www.reachingbliss.com, and it's all there. You can also, what also is Sukhavati Studios, they, on that website is also everything that I do. You could even actually Google Chitta Chat with Lama John. It's so funny to say Lama John. You just like, you get called a Lama, but it's not like I ever decided that. So Chitta Chat with Lama John, you search that will pop up, and then this set of beautiful teachings that are on there. Like there's other ones too. There's a Raja Yoga guy there, and there's, I think, nutritionist on that as well. It doesn't matter. That's that. So what else am I doing? Anything else?
Your website is one more time, John.
Yeah, www.reachingbliss.com.
Reachingbliss.com.
Yeah, all one word.
Thank you.
And what else we do is every third Saturday of every month, we do a full day retreat.
Oh yeah.
We go from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m, and we do 4 2-hour sessions.
Very
and
cool.
That's happening. And then we have a 2 or 3 times a year, we do a 7-day retreat. There's one coming up in April. Yeah, end of April. And then finally, after all this time, we're going to do an actual in-person retreat in June. So lots going on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you can connect with John via Mindoasis, mindoasis.org. You can go to his website, reachingbliss.com. John, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Karuna. This was awesome. So great to hang out.